So I'm here at the ARC event, and with me is Marcus Gibson. He's a writer, he's an author focusing on climate and the issues surrounding that. So Marcus, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
I want to start with asking you, what do you make of all this, and why are you here to this? I mean, what is it about? Because there's so many different nuances to it.
Yes, I think with particularly young people, there's a crisis in values, in getting together, having children, affording a house. There are all sorts of real crises going on, and I think this event has gone a long way to looking for problems and then trying to find solutions for each of those issues.
Because the conversation about a lot of things seems very polarised, and had it not been for people like GB News, so I know that you're very much into the climate, had it not been for GB News, and you also work for the BBC, at the BBC when I worked there you couldn't really talk about or question climate. So now we're here, we're talking about it and opening the conversation. What is your view on the direction or the net zero policies and the direction of travel at the moment?
Well, in one sentence, net zero is a suicide pill for the British economy. Nothing more, nothing less. It's completely unaffordable, it's totally unnecessary, and it's going to crush everything we hold dear if we're not careful.
Wow, that's quite.
I'll go one step further.
Please do, yeah.
People think we have a climate crisis, which we don't. What we really do have is an energy supply crisis. Because I've been talking to professional power engineers about this, and they tell me that on the 20th of April, 2035, the UK power grid is likely to collapse. And that's due to a coalescence of a whole series of factors. We've closed down, we've only got 3 coal-fired power stations left, and we're closing them down.
Yeah.
The French nuclear power stations we've been drawing power from, they'll be far fewer in those times. Secondly, there's an increasingly anger at the amount of the forests we're using for wood pellets to go in our biggest power station. 12% of our power comes from the Drax power station in southern Yorkshire. That might go. And there's a whole series of other things, the ban on fracking, the ban on new oil fields, except for 1 or 2. All this will come together, on the 20th of April, which, by the way, is Hitler's birthday, at the end of a long winter. And of course, if we have 1 million immigrants each year to 2035, the load on the grid will be much greater anyway. And then we've got 1 million at the moment electric vehicles. That's due to be 25 million by 2035. And of course, at that time, we still don't know if Russia will be a friend of ours or whether they'll be the last sort of country to help us in an energy crisis. All those factors will come together in 2035 and the grid will collapse.
But could you not be seen as, because on the reverse side, as being seen as scaremongering and, catastrophizing as the climate deniers are accused of?
Well, these are energy figures which cannot be.
We hope you enjoyed your lunch. We will be starting again in 5 minutes. If you'd like to start making your way back into the main room, we will be starting in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. But could you not be seen as catastrophizing, just like the supposed climate deniers, or people who are saying that the climate is going to change and we're all going to hell in a handcart? Could you not be seen to be doing that? I mean, you've actually given us a date as to when we're going to run out of everything.
Yes. My information comes from professional power engineers who really are the only people we should be talking to about these things. And energy doesn't lie. When you overload a grid, it will collapse, like South Africa, like parts of California recently. There's no going back on this. This is the truth. And the other thing you have to remember, of course, is that if the water pumps stop in major cities, in the event of a power grid failure, we will soon get cholera. It's almost inevitable. So it's a very, very dark place if we do not change our energy policy, and quickly.
But what about all the things? So they're saying that they're going to build hundreds of miles of pylons now to accommodate for electricity, so that we can have all our electric cars. And I mean, is this real? Is it even possible that we could supply this entire country with electricity that we have generated ourselves?
Well, we cannot survive on renewables. Only I think supply about 14 or 14% of total energy needs. They supply about half of electricity needs, but electricity is actually a very small part of the total energy grid. Oil, gas, all these other things you need. So I think to answer your question, we could do it if we started now, but the cost is prohibitive and unnecessary. We don't have the power from renewables, and by the way, the word renewables is a ridiculous phrase because once energy goes, it goes. And of course, the other thing is, by 2035, the current generation of these wind turbines, they will all start to go out a bit to collapse. Because they have a 15 to 20 year lifespan. So the current generation of wind turbines will fail at the same time as all these other factors.
But does it make any sense to be using things like solar panels, or having solar fields, to having wind turbines, when at the end of the day, if this country, we are going to see mass flooding, aren't they the very structures that would collapse in that environment?
Though they will, yes.
Yeah.
And as I say, the energy figures don't lie. It's going to happen unless we really change things dramatically. And we have a succession of prime ministers and energy secretaries who've let us down so badly.
I want to ask you very briefly then, with regard to the BBC. The BBC have been seen marking their own homework, which they have been during Ofcom. They don't have to refer. They refer themselves to Ofcom, unlike all of us. We get referred to Ofcom. And given the mistakes that they have made, what do you think should be happening to our state broadcaster? Can we carry on like this?
I think the state broadcaster needs to be turned into a maximum 1 billion turnover entity, not the, was it 3?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be starting in the next 2 minutes. If you'd like to make your way back to your seats, please. 2 minutes.
Can we carry on though, briefly? Because I've got a few questions. Can we carry on?
Start again?
Can we carry on?
Last question.
Yeah, that's good, because I didn't ask it properly anyway. That's good. Okay, so where was it? It was about the BBC, wasn't it?
What do I think of the BBC?
Now, I wanted to ask you about the BBC, because the other day there was a piece in the Telegraph about the fact that the BBC mark their own homework, so unlike us at GB News and other broadcasters, we get referred to Ofcom by the public or whoever wants to complain about us, whereas the BBC have their own internal complaints department, and then they decide whether they're going to refer themselves to Ofcom. Now, given the situation that happened where they made mistakes with regard to Israel and obviously the bombing near the hospital, do you think that it's time that we looked at the BBC and that it changed in some form? Can we carry on with it the way it is?
No. The BBC needs to be cut back quite drastically, as I say, to become a 1 billion turnover business, not the huge entity it is at the moment. Secondly, with issues like climate change, they must reintroduce impartiality and other voices into the game. But why is it they claim that that GB News is impartial? It should be impartial, but then the BBC is blatantly partial on global warming. As we know, the late Lord Lawson was banned. Many other people are banned. And frankly, late David Attenborough only kept his job because he went along with the global warming, myth, and when many other presenters, were sacked.
Yeah, the global warming myth, you say?
Oh, completely.
Complete myth.
Oh, completely.
How? Why? Very briefly, because I'm running out of time. And
where should I start? Well, half of all weather stations in America, and many of them in this country, are airports. They're not ambient. 35% of America is forest. There's not a single national weather station in an American forest. If you go to Chicago O'Hare Airport, which 100 years ago was an orchard, because the code is ORD for Chicago Airport, you'll realise it was once an orchard. Now it's the fourth world's biggest airport, whatever it is. So
they're taking readings from airports where it's very hot. Is that what you mean?
Yes, the readings from an airport.
They're going to be obviously hot.
Yes, it's an average of 5 degrees warmer by day and 8 degrees warmer by night. And lastly, Heathrow Airport is always included in the UK weather stats, not a weather station in Windsor Great Park 5 miles down the road.
Well, Marcus, I could talk to you for ages about this. We will continue this conversation on my show on GB News, because I'd like to invite you on so you can have a long conversation about the climate, because we're always talking about it. And I think people need to hear more, because before the debate was suppressed, no one was allowed to have another view, and now we're here, we can talk about it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Really good to talk to you.